I hated Dark Souls as much as it loved the hatred I love-hated from hate loving it. For 3 years, it readily refused to reciprocate my repeated attempts at reverence. It was only through sheer persistence and patience it eventually purged itself as one of my favorite games. Breath of the Wild, however, involved no such thing, as it instantaneously bared itself to let me bask in its non-nihilistic naturism and warmth. This purposeless premonition got me thinking. Games try to colonize you. But how does a game become one's favorite? If we respectfully dissect the concept of love, can we learn to love more? Can we even learn to love better? Oh, hello there. I'm Marcus Tigerdrit, and here is my card containing contextual information about me and my biases, which you can pause and read if you are curious. To allow this abstract and absurd video to make any sense, I've managed to condense what loving games entails into 3 partially plausible pillars, that is self-expression, companionship, and memory. As I explain them in turn, notice how they apply to the medium of video games exclusively, which will become important in a later video. Note that these 3 pillars does not constitute the liking, enjoying, or even digging of a game. They explicitly explain what the definite devotion to our most beloved games are made of, and how we can observe and cherish those feelings. A game commands you to command it. Without us, it does not exist or function. It demands action, and actions are choices. A choice could be to jump over an enemy as opposed to on it in a side-scroller, or simply picking an option in a dialogue tree. Actions are choices, and choices are the most raw representation of ourselves. As the game sumptuously showers you with satisfactory personal assertions, true love springs forth. That is why it feels like we don't merely play our favorite games, we are our favorite games, because they let us be ourselves. Contentiously closely connected to this, we find self-discovery. You can learn about yourself through books and movies, through passively asking yourself questions of your moral character. But many games pamper us with not only having the questions asked to us personally, but great games allows us to actively answer them, not only in our minds, but corporeally with our hands. Personally, and perhaps most boringestly, this affects me most profoundly as it pertains to role-playing games. I tend to play as myself when the game allows me to, thinking about what I would have done in a given situation. This has genuinely helped me to expose my people-pleasing ways to myself, allowing me to challenge this notion in an exaggerated environment. The companion system of Dragon Age Origins shone an explicitly blazing light on my sometimes disturbingly flexible principles and moral beliefs. If you haven't played it, your mobile mates have moral principles of their own and will eagerly judge the character of your character. This is acutely accentuated by not only their words to you, but a relentlessly unambiguous message in the corner, compressing their thoughts about you into approval and disapproval. For instance, I took a liking to the witch Morrigan, intent on seeing her story through to the end. Turns out she disdained my puny proclivity for mercy and compassion, and it was not long until I noticed I started making both 1 and 2 heinous choices to please her, rather than what I wanted to do, which my other ambulatory allies called me out for. I was faced with a choice on a larger scale in Elix. At one point or another, you have to align yourself with one of the 3 major factions, effectively making the other 2 your enemies. Interestingly, for myself, I found this choice easier to make, as I have amalgamated myself into a weird, confrontation-fearing contrarian freak.
Is it even worth bringing up how Dark Souls proved that you can overcome great challenges? Well, I just did, but that is all I will say about that. Thank you.
I don't play multiplayer games. I'm an introvert as far as in my energy dissipates drainingly fast whenever other people are involved. So while the idea of companionship could relate to this aspect, I wouldn't know anything about that. I'd like instead to offer a more iterative and sad definition of companionship. About 7 years ago, I was at my worst. My relationship with what later would become my wife was in shambles. I failed to get my company off the ground and had to teach music to disgusting high schoolers. My nights were as devoid of sleep as they were erupting with thoughts.
When those thoughts threatened oblivion, I would get up, turn on my PC, put on my headphones, and disappear for a while in the world of Witcher 3, sometimes simply strolling among the swaying heather and rippling streams of Skellige. The transcendental music shrouded me from everything.
Even thinking about it now brings a smile to my face. Wait, is this the textbook definition of escapism?
Escapism. Habitual diversion of the mind to purely imaginative activity or entertainment, as an escape from reality or routine.
Huh. I guess it is. The thing is, my time with Witcher 3 cannot be degraded and reduced to a mental diversion. It was there for me, transcending the inherent digitality of itself to become tangibly meaningful.
Take Naked Jakey's video about Dark Souls, where he explains how Dark Souls not only kept him company, but helped him with overcoming depression and rediscover his love for games. That is companionship, not escapism.
Growing older, I realized how fleeting the present is in a sense. That life consists of memories and how amassing more happy memories than bad ones is not the, but perhaps one, definition of life itself. And if there is one thing that movies, TV shows, books, or good games struggle to provide, that our most precious games facilitate in abundance, it's memories. The memories created by great games stems from you being an engaged co-author, owning your experience.
Take the Freddy Got Fingered of memorable gaming moments, which is discovering the shortcut to Firelink Shrine in Fallout 76. Untold amounts of people fell in love with Fallout 76 at that exact moment, and it's impossible to form that connection by any other means than organically stumble upon it yourself.
Again, multiplayer games are in a way made to facilitate these unique moments with its chaotic nature, but since I have diligently dismissed them, I want to pivot back to Witcher 3.
A few months ago, after playing it through 3 times and for roughly 300 hours, I experienced a brand new adventure. This playthrough was as sequence-breaking as possible, and I went for the often third visited main quest location Skellige immediately, and beelined to rescue the king's son before talking to anyone on the island. I remember vaguely where on the island of Undvik he was, so without any quest markers or direction, I started scouring for clues. And it was a fucking blast. I even managed to get lost in a vast cave complex I had completely missed out on. I was also severely underleveled playing on the Death March difficulty, so every encounter was potentially lethal.
Those were 90 minutes of pure, unadulterated joy. Thinking about it, this is the girthiest of the pillars of game adulation, not least because it's the domineering differentiator from films and books.
My adventure in Undvik, when I played God of War in pitch darkness on a brand new OLED TV with amber lights, arriving in Alfheim on a silvery lake of divinity. Or the second best explosive elation I experienced as a 12-year-old when I escaped the massive climatic police chase in 2005's Need for Speed Most Wanted.
Those memories have colonized me. And that is about as refined of a definition as I can muster for the notion of loving a game. Noah Caldwell Gervais' masterpiece of a video about Red Dead Redemption genuinely changed me as a person.
It is a 4-hour retrospective on the franchise, and mainly its themes of passing time and lingering. I have played Red Dead 1 and 2 and loved them, but after watching his takes on it, I feel like a fool for missing the point. I mean, just listen to this fucking guy.
Red Dead Redemption is a game instead about the lingering. Lingering in a past we know is false. Lingering in a dream it's foolish to have. Lingering in a life that's no longer sustainable. The first time I played, I wanted to see what happens. That was the wrong way to approach Red Dead Redemption 2. What happens means the possibilities are all played out. What happens is not always kind. What happens is not always what you hoped. The quicker you move, the quicker you get there. Linger, though, and the dream doesn't quite collapse yet. Linger and the myth stays alive.
It hurts that I will never be able to penalize, much less formulate, anything as emotionally true as that.
Here is another perspective on Elden Ring and fantasy games in general that also stuck in my mind.
I love a good fantasy novel, but it's limited by my own visual imagination. I can only picture things based on things I've seen. Games like Elden Ring expand my entire imagination by giving me a broader visual vocabulary. I would never have been able to paint such complex, beautiful landscapes or such dense, intricate cities, let alone with such skill that they all cohere in mood and tone myself in my own imagination. It is beyond what my imagination knows how to do.
What I'm poorly trying to convey is that expanding our mind with new perspectives is the best way to find new games to love. That said, you have to be the judge on when you're pushing yourself against the wall. For instance, despite Noah's beautiful way of describing the mythical dimensions and deep themes of No Man's Sky, I couldn't force myself to mine rocks and oxygen for hours on end. But here, we also find needlessly nuanced nuisances to account for. You might take issue with the following statement, but not watching a 30-minute tutorial video before playing Baldur's Gate 3 handicaps your chances of this game possibly changing your life. Could you fault the game for this? I don't think so. I mean, you are going to spend at least 60 magical hours in the game. Are 30 minutes watching a Mortisimal video not a minuscule price of admission? On principle, you could disagree with this and even be right on some level, but you should constantly be revising and reviewing your beliefs, reflecting on how they serve you. But this is tough. Also, games are the gatekeepers of themselves, and they gatekeep through time investment. That means trying a new game is gambling with time. An overly nihilistic way to look at this is about heartbeats. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the thumping. Consider how most of us get 2.5 billion heartbeats in our lifetime. I'm 30, so I have recently passed 1 billion heartbeats.
More than 1 million of those were spent with my 300 hours of Witcher 3. 33 million heartbeats passed in my 7,000 hours with World of Warcraft. 40,000 heartbeats passed during the 8 hours I spent with Assassin's Creed Valhalla before realizing it was boring as fuck.
But while we all have an equal amount of heartbeats to dispense, we don't possess an equal amount of them to spend on games for whatever reason. Either way, you need to pose yourself the question, are you a gambler? The analogy isn't perfect since you can't get any heartbeats back. It's more like you are betting the heartbeats to have meant something positive to you. I know this is fucking stupid because it's just saying like, oh, if you start playing a game, you want it to be good. And who doesn't have that mindset? Well, my point is that sure, people have that attitude, But I don't believe everybody employs introspection as they go along. I think a lot of people, for good reasons, play with differing degrees of apathy. After a hard day's work, you want to relax and shoot shit, not employ introspection. And that's fine, but I would still implore you to get out of your autopilot once in a while and pose these questions to yourself. Playing games is dumb. It's a dumb activity for people that should do something more productive and constructive with their time. It's this loose sentiment of some fussy strawman that makes me chronically overcomplicate this shit. Should I chill out and shut up? Because I realized that my way of thinking about games isn't applicable to everyone, let alone anyone. So I expect and welcome any feedback, discussion, and personal attack you might have drafted up while watching this very video. That being said, however, how could you argue that the idea of self-reflection, contemplation, and rumination on your gaming behavior could be a net negative? Could overcomplicating a relaxing activity be anxiety-inducing? Maybe. If that is the case, I doubt you would find your way to this semi-philosophical, pretentious rambling by a literal clown, much less watch it to the end. If you are one of those tens of people that did, I thank you. I hope you found something useful about this. My name has been Marcus Tiger Drake, and I will see you next month.